Hi Cedar House, it's Miss Megan. It's so good to see all of you. If you're tuned in still, we're going to continue our study about live plants, and I'm going to take you on a quick walk around my yard, and we're going to learn about them in more detail. So here comes Riley to get our chicken off the porch. Okay. So here's our backyard. Shane's obstacle course is set up, and there's our chicken coop, but as you can see, there's all sorts of butterflies and bees out right now too. Here's a wild onion right there. And then come on over this way, because somehow in our yard we have one single Indian paintbrush. Oh, I'm passing something else. This is a sow thistle right there. It's in the dandelion family. Those leaves are super prickly and pointy. I dug one up earlier to have for an example, and it made my arm itch and poked me. We're gonna come on over here, and here is our solitary Indian paintbrush. And I actually learned, we call them prairie fire too. Those aren't actually its flowers. They're something called bracts. And Native Americans used to use these to make hair shampoo. They'd also use, like Henley talked about, the little flowers right there as a sweet treat. And they would actually use them as a garnish. So to make food dishes look really pretty, because apparently they are actually quite edible. So we're gonna head back. We're gonna head back over to my porch, where I have a setup of our edible plants that were at the Cedar House. And we'll get started. So I'm going to repeat out, and we're looking for wild plants. Two of the most common things they're used for is, one is food, right? They're edible. The other thing is, a lot of different cultures and people will use them for medicinal purposes. They make medicine out of them. Like the willow bark is sort of like, sorry about the noise. The willow bark is like a natural aspirin. It reduces inflammation, which is swelling. Like when you hurt yourself and your ankle is sprained, there's Shane. Huh? Anti-inflammatory. It'll help the swelling. It'll help a headache, just like an aspirin. The practice of going out and collecting wild plants is called foraging. So you're foraging. You're a forager. And you go foraging when you look for these wild edible plants that are used either to eat or for medicine, or to make teas, or we call some things tinctures. That's when you take the plant and you put it with some sort of alcohol, and you only take a drop. And so sometimes different cultures use those almost entirely for their medicines. So a couple of things on foraging. Peas. I'm not sure. I haven't checked the validity of that.
The Okalakis have them at their house.
Okay. So a couple of things about foraging. We need to take a look at the plants around us really closely. And a couple of the things that you want to pay attention to are the shape of the plant, where it's at, both geographically. So our wild foraging is going to take place, obviously, in Texas, in north central Texas. And so people in Michigan or people in California or people in other countries are going to have completely different edibles and wild plants that they forage for than we do. So the geography, but also where the plant is. So some plants grow in prairies. Some plants grow in forests. Some things will grow only along beds of water nearby where water is. And so when you're learning about all of these things, you want to make sure that you're matching up your location, where you're at, but also the location of the plants. Are you in a forest? Are you in your backyard? So that it helps you to identify them. the things we use to identify them, we actually talked about when we studied botany last semester. You're going to look at the pattern of the leaf, whether it's serrated along the edge. I don't know if you guys remember that, or the vein pattern. We talked a lot about that last time. The shape, the vein pattern. Is it in something called a rosette, which is when the leaves grow out in like a circle in layers? That's a rosette pattern, and a lot of wild edibles are actually in a rosette pattern, and that's part of how you identify them as a specific plant. And then I'm going to repeat what Miss Samantha said, safety. We have to do the safe thing. You have to ask your parents if it's okay that you even touch them, because like I found out, some of them are spiky and make you itch. You always want to wash them. If you are going to eat them or make a tea out of them, you may want to, do something with your edible plants. You have to wash them. And then if it's something you're not quite sure about, make sure you verify it in multiple places. Either ask an expert if you happen to know one. There's different apps at the Cedar House. We use Picture This and iNaturalist. And those really help with identification, and most of the time it'll tell you if it's edible or what its uses are for. And then you just verify through multiple pictures and make sure that you're very sure before you decide you're going to try it out. The other thing with foraging is you need to know when to forage it. A lot of things are edible across a variety of seasons as long as they're there, but sometimes you don't want to eat them in certain times. So for instance, we talked about dock, and if the leaves are starting to curl on the dock, that means they're probably not going to be as good as if they're flat still. And so those are some of the types of things that you have to pay attention to, is when. And so we have Miss Samantha and I used a Texas foraging guide, and she can send a link later if people are interested in getting it. Also online is a great resource, obviously, but you can kind of take a look and make sure that you know when to forage. The other thing is going to be what parts. So again, we talked about this last semester with botany, all the different parts of the plant. You have the leaf, the stem, the root, and then in addition to that, you have different stages. So there's, the flowering part, the fruit, and then the seeds. And so you need to make sure that you're eating the right part. For instance, dandelions, all the parts are going to be edible once it's dried up, those little mini parachute things, because that would be gross. But you can eat the stem and the flower of a dandelion. You can also eat the leaves, although they do recommend that kids not eat many stems or leaves, especially raw, because they contain things that you can eat too much of. And so you have to be really safe with this. Know when, know what parts, and know where you're at so you can get a better idea about what might be available to you. So I'm going to turn this around, and we're going to start on our plants. So we're going to talk about so many things you can do with dandelions. You can wash these off and put them in a salad just like they are. Their official name is the Taraxacum officinale. And, oh, there's our chicken. Hi. So the dandelion, pop those little heads off, and you can make a tea with it. You can make a syrup, which is what the girls and I did. You take 100 heads of dandelions, you wash them really well, and then you bring them all to a boil in water, and then you leave that sit overnight. And then the next day you put it through a strainer and you push on your dandelion heads, and the water that you've strained out, you can make into a syrup. You put it back on the stove and you add sugar until it kind of turns into the consistency of maple syrup, and then you have dandelion syrup. You can dry them and use them in tea. You can put them on a salad. You can cut those heads off and you can bread them and fry them, and it's like a squash vegetable. So those are our dandelions, Taraxacum officinale. And if any of you can definitely want to know about it, and we want to see the bouquets you make, and we want to see if you make any foods or try anything out, So the next plant we have is yarrow. Got a little wilty on us. So there are a lot of people who will use these fresh leaves on the yarrow for gum pain or tooth pain. That's one of the common medicinal uses. And when they flower, which this guy hasn't flowered yet, but they usually produce a vivid yellow or a white flower. When they flower, you can make tea out of them, and those teas are commonly used are different than the leaves, right? The other thing yarrow is commonly used for is once those yellow flowers bloom on this, you can even make a natural Easter egg dye with it. So that's yarrow. The next thing we have is dock. So here's dock. I think I got a dandelion stuck in it. I did, sorry. So this is dock. There's a big long root system. You guys remember our root systems? I give a bonus if anyone can tell me what kind of root system that is. Is it tap or fibrous? You guys think about it and tell us. So this is dock. So you can saute these leaves, and it's almost like, and part of what your liver does is help detox your body. So it removes toxins from your body. A big word is metabolizes. The liver's job is to metabolize things. Medicines, foods, anything you put in your body, a lot of them are metabolized in the liver. It breaks it down. And so you can have too many toxins in your body and they'll go to your liver. So we want our livers to be really, really healthy. And dock is one of the foods that's commonly used in liver health, to keep your liver healthy. The other thing it has is something called a laxative effect. It helps you go to the bathroom. It helps your bowels. And so it's commonly used in salad, but also if you're having tummy issues or if your liver needs cleared. Henley says the root system that's going down. Ask him if he remembers what it's called, tap or fibrous. Okay, was black willow. There's the leaves. Thick, so you can even chew that, right? And I think that we talked about the willow is an anti-inflammatory, right? It has something in it, let me show you, called salicin. That's probably why it's part of the Salix family, right? Salicin, which is somewhat like aspirin. Aspirin is an anti-inflammatory, right? We talked about that. And so people out in the field, Miss Samantha is revealed if she has a headache, she talks about how she would chew on the end of a stick of willow to help her headache because it's used as an anti-inflammatory. It's also something called an anticoagulant. When we talk about blood in our body, blood can be too thin or it can be it clots too much. It coagulates. That's what that word means. And so willow bark specifically is considered an anticoagulant. It's kind of a natural blood thinner. And so people who use plants as medicine, which some cultures like Native Americans, they used almost exclusively plants for medicine. They didn't have some of the medicines we have yet. And so if somebody had with blood clotting, willow bark was used. They would chew it. That's very pretty. Here's Riley. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Riley, who's also Elsa. Huh? What did you find? Oh, that's beautiful. We have some wildflowers popping up in our yard. So willow bark. There's a lot of different species of willow, the Salix, but all of them have very similar properties. The next one we're going to talk about is corn salad, Valerianella locusta. Where is my corn salad plant? I don't see my corn salad. So it's also called lamb's lettuce. Our corn salad, it got a little bit sad after being picked. The other word for it, though, is lamb's lettuce. It's kind of the natural lettuce, and we find it all over this area of Texas. You want to eat it before the flowers come, that rosette pattern. So like a blooming rose, layered leaves that grow in a circle. And it's very rich in vitamins A, C, vitamin B6. It has a lot of potassium in it and iron. So it's an incredibly healthy little plant. Mainly, we would want you to add it to your salads, right? It's a great lettuce leaf, lamb's lettuce, or corn salad, Valerinella locusta. Miss Samantha did a porch drop-off for me of all the edibles from this. And she brought me a coffee. She's a good friend. I was so excited to see her little package, and they made me a allium. And there are a bunch of different species of this. Some of them are actually called garlic because they're in the same family, garlic, in the allium family. And one of the ways that you're going to know, and I think we already talked about it, you're going to know if it's an onion because it is going to smell like an onion. These little guys will bloom purple flower. Right now they're just bulbs. We have a couple in our yard that are starting to bloom. But most of them are still like this. And there's the onion part down here. When used for medicinal purposes, it's supposed to help treat croup, which is a type of cough that makes you sound like a barking seal. And it also is supposed to help prevent worms in your system and help with your blood flow because it does something called vasodilate. It dilates all the veins. So they use it to help with blood pressure in people who practice medicinal uses of herbs and plants. But for us, we can use both parts, the top and the root, the onion, to eat. And one of the things I learned about wild onion is that Miss Samantha, was this our lamb's lettuce? Here's another piece. The corn salad. Yes, it is. Here. Those are the little white flowers that you'll see on some species of it. And then you've got the leaves. These were not curled initially. They were nice and soft and full, but we took it out of the ground. But here's the little leaves you would use to make an actual salad out of corn salad. So I'm going to show you the board again in case you were writing it down in your journals. And these are the 6 we talked about specifically. Dandelion, yarrow, dock, which we had a couple of species of that Henley showed you. And then willow bark, corn salad, and wild onions. All right. So thanks for tuning in with us, guys. I want you to go out in your backyards or around your house and see if you can find anything that we may not have mentioned, or tell us what you did with the edibles you found. I told Shane she could cook some onions later and make a salad, so we'll see if she's brave enough to try it. I don't think I'm brave enough, but we'll see. And I think it's similar to the dandelion. I think you can add it to the tea, right, Miss Samantha? Is that what you're going to do with this guy? Is put it in the tea with your dandelions? Don't touch the leaves, remember? They spike. So, it was good to see you all. If you nature journaled and you want to send us a picture edible, identify it and let us know what you're going to use it for, or tell us about it. We miss you all, and keep tuning in on live so that you can follow along with the Cedar House.